Hello, it's been a very long time since I last made a video, and this is going to be my newest video, obviously, because I'm posting it anyway. Hi, as always, I'm Zoshi17 or Berlunchi, and this is my video about Berserk, the anime and manga created by Kentaro Miura in 1989. This is an extremely brief overview and analysis. This is my favorite piece of fiction ever. So maybe I'll make a deeper video in the future when I'm feeling up for it because these take a lot of energy to make. So sit back and enjoy my brief analysis of Berserk. Berserk, created by Kentaro Miura, is not merely a manga. It is an experience, a journey through suffering, revenge, hope, and above all, the indomitable human spirit's resilience against the cosmic forces that seem hell-bent on crushing it. In a medium often dominated by lighthearted heroes and world-saving quest, Berserk offers a brutal, unflinching exploration of the consequences of vengeance, the inevitability of fate, and the terrifying darkness that dwells within both individuals and society. At the heart of this world is Guts, the protagonist whose life has been one long bloody battle against fate itself. His story is about vengeance and survival, but more deeply is about the complexity of human emotions and how the weight of trauma and loss can drive an individual to the brink of madness. Berserk isn't just a story about monsters and demons. It's a meditation on the true monsters that lie within human beings, the psychological scars left by suffering and the never-ending struggle to rise above them. Section 1. The World of Berserk, a land ruled by violence and dark forces. The world of Berserk is as unforgiving as it is expansive. It's a land filled with wars, monsters, betrayal, and a deep sense of despair. From the first pages, we are introduced to a world steeped in medieval brutality, with human beings are as capable of unspeakable violence as the demons that walk among them. The setting and political landscape. Midland is a central kingdom in Berserk, a kingdom that teeters on the brink of war, where nobility is often as corrupt as the mercenaries who fight for it. The political backdrop of Berserk is grim, defined by power struggles between rival kingdoms, the manipulation of the elite, and a society structured around violence and military conquest. The Cheddar Empire and Midland's prolonged wars define much of the early arc of the story, and they provide the setting where Guts' first acts of bloodshed occur. But politics, as often as it is in Berserk, is a background player to the far greater, more insidious conflicts at hand. The battle for the soul of humanity itself. While kingdoms clash, the true struggle is one between demonic forces and the fragile humanity that still exists. The God Hand, a group of 5 powerful demonic entities, represent a higher power that plays a major role in the shaping of the world, and they embody the themes of fate, sacrifice, and cosmic horror that permeate the series. The world of Berserk is also home to apostles, former humans who have transcended their mortality in horrific ways. These apostles have made deals with demonic forces, exchanging their humanity for immense power in the form of monstrous, grotesque transformations. Their existence blurs the line between man and monster, making them symbolic of the corruption and degradation that comes with unchecked ambition. Each apostle reflects the darkest parts of human desire: greed, lust, vanity, envy, and vengeance. Miura crafts a world that is incredibly layered and complex, with each piece serving to reinforce the narrative central themes of suffering and the fragility of the human condition. Every corner of this world, whether it's the war-torn fields, the palaces of the powerful, or the dark forest filled with nightmares, speaks to a deeper, existential horror, one where humans are not the masters of their fate, but are instead at the mercy of forces beyond their comprehension. Cosmic horror and fate. The idea of fate is ever present in Berserk. The God Hand, as demonic manipulators of human events, embody this theme. Their power is not merely to influence the world, they are in many ways the architects of its very existence. Through them, Miura introduces the concept of the brand of sacrifice, a curse that marks certain individuals for death, leading to inevitable conflict and suffering. The God Hand's influence on the world of Berserk is profound, as they shape not only the lives of individuals like Guts, but also the very fabric of the universe itself. This series takes on a cosmic horror tone as it explores the limits of human agency in a world governed by forces far beyond individual control. Guts' journey, therefore, is not just one of a personal one. It is a universal struggle against the very nature of existence. This tension between the desire for agency and the reality of predestination forms one of the cornerstones of Berserk's thematic depth. Section 2. Guts, the reluctant hero of Berserk's dark world. Guts isn't your traditional hero. He's not a chosen one, born from, like, prestigious rights, nor is he driven by lofty ideals. His story is of sheer survival, where every step forward is earned through blood and sacrifice. His brutal nature and single-minded pursuit of vengeance make him an anti-hero, but at the same time, his depth as a character reveals the tragic complexities of human nature. So in the way where he's an anti-hero, where he'll do bad things, per se, like if you just look at it blatantly, he'll do bad things, but there's deeper meanings behind him. I'm not justifying like him burning down a forest or anything, but if he does do a bad thing, there's more than to just him doing a bad thing. He only kills people for reasons where he needs to, or if he doesn't, they will kill him. So it's not just like he goes around killing people just because he kind of needs to and he has justification for it. The early years, birth and betrayal. Guts' journey begins before the Reaver even meets him, as his very birth marks the beginning of his lifelong struggle. Born from the corpse of a hanging woman. Yes, she's literally dead, hung by a noose on a tree, and he is then, like, birthed from said dead body, which it's over the top gross, and for one of the first pages in the book, it's an easy way to turn any reader away from it, and I honestly am shocked that I didn't turn myself away from it, because I'm not into that stuff, but yeah, it was really hard to see. Guts' entry into the world symbolizes his existence as something born, unnatural, and tragic. His first moments are filled with violence, as the man who takes him in, Gambino, is cruel and harsh, forcing Guts to grow up quickly and without love. This early trauma shapes Guts into the person he becomes, a warrior driven not by the glory or honor, but by a need to survive. In Gambino's mercenary squad, this is where essentially he grows up, and he starts, there's a kid, they pick him up literally off the ground under his mother's dead body on a tree, and they kind of take care of him, like they give him enough food so he'll live, they'll give him a warm place to sleep, they give him a sword, no clothes, well they gave him one pair of clothes and he's been wearing it until he grew up, like one set of clothes, and they gave him a sword, and whenever it started to break, they promised to give him a new one, but all he would do is battle and train and train and battle, and there comes to a point in the story, it's like the initial pivoting point, like for Guts' character arc, where Gambino, his basically stepdad, like the person at the head of this mercenary squad that actually took him off the ground, hires someone to actually rape Guts. He pays this man like 3 silver coins or something to rape Guts, and it's this super sad scene where Guts is just sleeping, and then the guy tells him that Gambino sold him, and then he gets on top of him, and it's hard to read even today. After he fends off this guy and kills him with the sword that he sleeps with because that's all he has, he clings to his sword because he has no emotional anchors with anyone in the camp because they're all adults that drink, and he doesn't relate to any of them because he's just a kid, man. He's like younger than like 12. He heads over to Gambino's tent and confronts Gambino, who is sitting in his chair waiting for Guts to come because he expects Guts to kill the guy that tried to rape him. He comes to Gambino and he confronts him. And he says, like, why did you pay that guy? I thought, like, you were going to take care of me until I was strong enough to live my own. He said, I don't care about you. Like, he just started, like, berating him, telling him how much he really didn't care about him and how much his guys have been telling him they wanted to kick him out for so long. And so Gambino tries to kill Guts, and Guts kills Gambino. And it's this really, really hard scene to read because even though Guts didn't have any emotional anchors to him, it's the only person that showed any kind of sympathy to Guts at all in his current life because both of his parents were dead at his birth. And, you know, it was really hard for Guts and the reader. It's harder for Guts, obviously, but it was really hard read because he had to kill the only person that actually took him in, where the amount of emotion that he showed towards Guts was extremely little. It still played a big role because it was the only emotion that Guts has ever felt from anyone. So he kills Gambino, and then he runs off, leaving that squad of mercenaries, and all the other mercenaries wake up. He's then confronted by a pack of wolves, which he fends off and kills them, and then proceeds to eat them. And then we get a bit of time skip. And as a mercenary, Guts is taught that life is cheap and that only strength matters. His brutal existence is defined by constant fighting, which leads to his incredible skill with the sword. but his path crosses with that of Griffith, the leader of the Band of the Hawk, and this encounter changes the course of his and that band's life forever. The Band of the Hawk is a band of mercenaries, obviously. The initial bond Guts shares with Griffith is built on camaraderie, but it's also filled with tension, as because when they first meet, Casca, one of the women there, tries to fight Guts, and she's really tough, but Guts does subdue her, knocks her onto the ground, and then he says, will you leave me alone if I defeat your commander, which is Griffith. And so him and Griffith fight, and Griffith wins, although neither of them were killed, they're still both alive. Griffith wins and says something along the lines of, if you come with me, I won't kill you, but if you don't, I'll have my men hunt you down. Either that, or he said something like, before the duel, if I win, I get your butt, or ASS. I get your butt, and if you win, you get to leave freely. So basically, Guts recognizes that Griffith wants him in his band, and so he fights as hard as he can to not get put into this band, because Guts is like, he wants to be solo and not be tied down with this stuff, because he's traumatized by his childhood, and where that little bit of emotion got him. Griffith represents everything Guts is not: charisma, ambition, and a vision for the future. Their relationship is a central axis around which the entire story pivots and is based on how the relationship is. And it is dynamic that propels Guts into a conflict that will span the rest of the series. The cost of revenge. The first major turning point in Guts' life is Griffith's betrayal during the eclipse. The eclipse is the moment that forever marks Guts, both physically and emotionally. Griffith sacrifices the Band of the Hawk in order to ascend to godlike power as one of the God Hand, a decision that results in unimaginable horrors. Guts is forced to witness the brutal death of his comrades, and the woman he loves, Casca, is raped before him. The eclipse is the moment when Guts' obsession with revenge solidifies. He becomes consumed by the desire to destroy Griffith, and this quest for vengeance drives much of the series' action. However, as Guts continues on this path, Miura expertly shows us how vengeance is a destructive force, one that slowly consumes everything it touches, including Guts' own sense of self. Guts' journey towards revenge is neither cathartic. While he is incredibly skilled and capable of achieving feats of physical powers, he is deeply scarred by his past, unable to find peace even in the moments of his greatest victories. His hatred for Griffith is all-consuming, but it is also deeply hollow. Guts' pursuit of revenge isolates him, driving him further from the very human connections he so desperately needs. It is only through his relationship with others, particularly Casca, that Guts begins to confront his own trauma and reconsider his path. Section 3. Griffith, the charismatic giant. Griffith is, like I said, the exact opposite of Guts in many ways, yet their fates are incredibly interlinked. A visionary leader, Griffith's charisma and ambition inspire loyalty and admiration from those around him. However, as Berserk progresses, we see that Griffith's ambition is not merely for the good of his comrades, but for his own ascension to power. Griffith's vision and the nature of sacrifice. Griffith's ultimate goal is to create a kingdom, a place where he can rule and fulfill his grand vision. However, Griffith's desire for power is rooted in a much darker need, the need to transcend the human limitations and become something greater than the mortal man. His desire to be a ruler, to have the world bow before him, ultimately leads him to make an unthinkable choice, activating the Beylet, or sacrificing his comrades, including Guts, in order to achieve god-like power. After Guts meets Griffith, we soon see them playing and splashing water onto one another, and genuinely having a good time. In this instance, Griffith is shirtless and we see a small necklace on his neck. This necklace is called the Beylet. We see it in the future that this charm has been passed from hand to hand, stranger to stranger, to eventually make it to the destined one's grasp. After Griffith rapes the princess, he is thrown into a torture dungeon, and all of his muscles are taken from his body, and is tortured so much to the point where there is no time for him to even sleep. So he is in quite the mangled state. Guts and the remaining few Band of the Hawk members rescue him from the dungeon and take care of him in this horrible physical state. Like, this physical state was treacherous. Like, they ripped all of his muscles out, kept stabbing with huge metal spikes, but only so they were non-lethal, ripped his eyelashes out, eyebrows out, all of his hairs out, they cut his ears off, they cut his eyelashes, or not eyelashes, they cut his eyelids off. It was really, really bad what they did to him. And so he was in quite the mangled state, and that's when they came to rescue him. They bring him up to a wagon out of the dungeon, and he soon is like, they take care of him in the wagon. He soon leaves the wagon where he was resting and kneels into a nearby water pool and holds up the Beylet in his hand. The Beylet's face forms and starts to cry. The face forming symbolizes the destiny device being activated in the proper hands, thus starting the eclipse. At this moment, the God Hand, 5 powerful demonic entities who manipulate the fate of human being, emerges. The eclipse is essentially a sacrificial ritual, where a chosen individual must offer up the lives of their closest companions to ascend into the ranks of the God Hand or become a powerful apostle. Griffith, having used the Beylet to summon his ritual, he's the chosen one, and he is required to sacrifice those who are closest to him in order to fulfill his own dark destiny, which, without a doubt, would be the Band of the Hawk, including Guts and Casca. So he willingly chooses to sacrifice them for his own personal gain. As the God Hand materializes, Griffith is transformed into Femto, a being of immense power. His humanity is shed and he becomes a member of the God Hand, a group of eldritch beings who govern the state of mankind. Basically, what he looks like is he has like a skin-tight suit, which is all black, and he has a helmet which looks similar to his, he has a skull that's similar to his helmet that he had when he's human form. So it kind of looks like a hawk, and then he also has wings. Obviously, he has claw-like talons and hands like a hawk or eagle. In the process, Griffith's body undergoes a grotesque and demonic metamorphosis, resulting in the loss of his humanity identity. Meanwhile, the Band of the Hawk members, unaware of the full nature of the ritual, are slaughtered. In one of the most horrifying moments of the eclipse, Griffith, now Femto, is forced to witness his comrades' brutal deaths. The God Hand summons a vast army of demonic creatures to slaughter the Hawks, and every member is either murdered or consumed by the horrors around them. The scene is a grotesque mix of blood, gore, and unspeakable acts of violence. Casca, Guts' love interest, is also brutally assaulted by Griffith, marking the utter depths of his betrayal. While this is happening, Guts' arm is bitten down onto by a monster, but not totally biting it off, but to hold him still. So he is forced to watch Griffith sexually assaulting Casca. In response to the monster biting his arm, he uses his broken sword to cut his own arm off in one of the most intense and core-shattering moments of the whole anime and manga. We see him try to cut his arm off. We see him running towards Griffith and Casca to stop him, and he yells Griffith, and it is one of the most blood-curdling screams ever. If you watch the original '97 anime, it will strike the fear into you. It is a meaningful Griffith scream. He's then jumped onto by monsters and held down, forced to watch Casca getting assaulted, his eyes gouged out while the monsters are holding him down. In the midst of this carnage, Guts fights desperately to save his comrades, but he is ultimately overwhelmed by the power of the God Hand and demonic creatures. In one of the most heartbreaking and traumatic events in all of fiction that I've ever consumed, Guts is forced to witness Griffith's transformation and the destruction of everything he had fought for. During the eclipse, Guts is also branded with a brand of sacrifice, marking him as a target for demonic forces, as is Casca. So basically how it works is that, when you're playing a video game and somebody picks up a very important item, they get pinged on the map. Basically, Guts and Casca are pinged on the map to all demonic creatures. So he's trying to sleep, boom, bunch of skeleton monsters spawn in, or they start heading towards him. Boom, bunch of tree monsters start coming towards him. All the monsters load in, and they start just running and sprinting and beelining it to Guts and Casca, trying to not let them get a second of rest. So it's really hard for Guts to sleep, as with Casca. The eclipse concludes with Guts and Casca barely surviving. Guts is left emotionally and physically broken, while Casca is left completely mentally shattered, as she loses all memory of the horror she endured and before. The event leaves a lasting scar on both of them, shaping their future paths as they struggle with their trauma and the weight of what happened. Ultimately, the eclipse represents the cost of Griffith's ambition and the cruelty of fate. It highlights the series' central themes of sacrifice, the consequences of seeking power, and the fragility of human life in a world governed by dark forces. the event is one of the most brutal and defining moments in Berserk, setting the stage for the character-driven, deeply emotional narrative that follows. Like I said, the eclipse is the defining moment of the story and Griffith's character. As the leader of the Band of the Hawk, he is a man who commands to absolute loyalty, and yet, in his darkest moment, he proves that he's willing to sacrifice everything, even his humanity, friends, companions, pet, everything he's achieved in the status he's achieved to achieve his dreams. He becomes Femto, one of the 5 members of the Godhead, and his transformation is a tragic reflection of the dangers of unchecked ambition. Griffith's transformation is a powerful commentary on the nature of power, sacrifice, and the cost of dreams. His ambition blinds him to the human cost of his actions, and in doing so he becomes the very monster that Guts must confront. Griffith is not inherently evil, but his choices are guided by a belief that his vision justifies the means. In the end, Griffith's story is a tragic one that asks whether it is possible to pursue greatness without losing one's soul. Section 4. Casca, a victim of fate and trauma. Casca's journey through Berserk is equally tragic, and in many ways it mirrors Guts' own struggle with trauma and the consequences of the past. Casca starts as a strong, independent woman, but her life is shattered during the horrific events of the eclipse. After the horrific events, she suffers from memory loss, and much of her character arc revolves around her relationship with Guts as he tries to protect her and heal. It's sad. Really sad what happens to Casca. Casca's trauma and her role in Guts' redemption. Casca is not merely a victim of external forces, her story is one of deep internal conflicts as well. Her trauma following the eclipse is almost too much to bear, and her relationship with Guts becomes a source of emotional struggle for both of them. Casca's lost memories and shattered mind mirror the larger themes of Berserk, as her journey also involves seeking a form of redemption, one that is never fully realized but always sought after. While Guts' journey is about finding vengeance, Casca's arc is about survival, recovery, and reclaiming her sense of self. Through her, Berserk illustrates the long-term consequence of trauma and the impossibility of truly escaping the past. As Guts learns to care for her too, he too is forced to confront his own demons, and together they become a symbol of resilience in a world that seeks to crush them. Another part that I left out, that I just wanted to add, is that throughout the story, I was debating about talking this, but throughout the story, after the eclipse, Casca obviously loses her memory, as I just stated, and she loses her memory of the eclipse and before the eclipse. So she's like a newborn baby that knows motor skills and stuff, but she just doesn't have any recollection of any of her life. And so she sees Guts killing all these crazy monsters, and that's her only depiction of him. All she knows of Guts is that he kills monsters, and that he has a gun in his arm, and he's scary, and he'll do anything to kill these monsters because he wants to protect them. She doesn't recognize he's trying to protect them, but all she sees Guts for is that he's trying to kill monsters, and she gets scared by this. Obviously, you know, a 6'7" foot tall man, a 6'7", not 6 or 7 feet, 6'7" man with a 400-pound hunk of iron killing dragon, hydra, serpent, goblin, gorilla, you know, dinosaur-esque monsters with this huge sword and a cannon mechanical arm. That's pretty scary for someone that lost all memory. And so Casca becomes scared of Guts, and while Guts just wants to love her, it makes the story really sad to read, because all Guts wants to do is try to regain her memories back and get revenge on Griffith, and one of those is basically looming over his head at all times. Well, both of them are, because one, Casca doesn't have a memory, and she's always scared of Guts, so she doesn't want to be around him, and two, she lost her memory because of Griffith, so they're both hanging over his head, which it gets to a point where it gets really hard to read emotionally. It gets really sad. In conclusion, Berserk is not just a story of violence, demons, and revenge. It's a profound exploration of the human condition, of suffering and survival, of the eternal struggles against the forces of fate, through its characters, particularly Guts, Griffith, and Casca. Berserk reveals the darkness, within humanity, the price of ambition, and the cost of vengeance. In the end, Guts' story is not about achieving victory in the traditional sense. It's about learning to survive and find meaning in a world that offers little meaning, and to resist being consumed by the very darkness that threatens to destroy him and the people around him. Berserk teaches us that while revenge may seem like a solution to our pain, it only perpetuates suffering. True strength lies not in defeating our enemies, but in finding the courage to continue despite the overwhelming odds. Essentially, it teaches us about the indomitable human spirit in the face of indomitable atrocities. As we reflect on what currently is out of Berserk, as some of you guys definitely don't know, Berserk isn't finished, which sucks because although Miura's not with us, they keep continuing his story, Guts' story, and Miura's story, but it is nowhere near as fast as they used to release them. So like you get them extremely short. They used to do like one chapter a month or one every 2 months, and I think last year or the year before they dropped 4 total, which kind of sucks because there's still a lot left. Like we don't know how it ends at all. Like we don't even have an iota of an idea of how it could end. So you know, I really praying for this team. Hopefully they make a good ending, and we realize that it is work that transcends into a medium, a series that will continue to resonate with readers and viewers for years to come. It is a testament to Kentaro Miura's unparalleled storytelling and artistic mastery, a work that will remain one of the greatest achievements in the history of manga, anime, and fiction as a whole. And though Miura is no longer with us, his work lives on, reminding us that in a world full of darkness, there is still light to be found, even if it is but fleeting flame in the night. Thank you for listening to my video essay about Berserk. This is not as long as I wanted it to be. I was envisioning an hour plus video, and this one's probably going to be about 30 minutes each. I wish I was able to make it longer. I just ran out of time. I'm not sure. Yeah, but as I was saying in the intro, I hope to be able to make one longer than this eventually in the future, but I'm doing this as a grade 11 AP English book review, and my review was on Berserk obviously, and this is my submission.